Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, Israel Adesanya uploaded an interview that he did with his brother yesterday to his YouTube channel in his house, where he was just lounging about. Could have filmed half hour earlier, half hour later, decided, nah, I'm gonna do it right now while I'm fucking eating, and I'm gonna suck my fingers and do all that, which is just something that I absolutely expect from Israel Adesanya at this point. But considering we are leading up to an Aljamain Sterling fight week, or we are in an Aljamain Sterling fight week, I would like to point out a hypocrisy that I've noticed among people that are Israel Adesanya fans and who are also usually, Aljamain Sterling fans, including some content creators who I will speak on in just a second. Now, Israel Adesanya, in this interview with his brother, obviously getting lobbed softball questions, gets asked about the Dricus Du Plessis situation and whether or not Khamzat could jump the line with a potential dominant performance over a Paulo Costa. And Israel Adesanya says absolutely, for sure, blah, 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 blah. A bunch of quotes of his that he's said in the past. I swear to God, the guy's he's weaponizing his autism to fight, but he's also not as successful when he's speaking. He literally can't speak a paragraph without referring back to a quote of his own or a quote from a movie or a song or something along those lines. It's very strange, very cringy, but regardless, they go on to talk about how he took the Kelvin Gastelum fight 8 weeks after his fight with Anderson Silva, which, if you remember, the fight with Anderson Silva was nothing special. They didn't really hurt each other, but Israel Adesanya outlanded him by more than a factor of 2, and Anderson Silva did not have much success in that fight whatsoever. And honestly, at the time, it was an exciting fight to watch, but if you go back and watch it, it was not all that great. They didn't do a whole lot, but regardless, he took the Gastelum fight 8 weeks after, where he had just fought 4 times in 10 months. Which is a very strong schedule. I will give him that, right? He fought Vettori, Tavares, Brunson, Anderson, all within 10 months. Fought Kelvin Gastelum, making it 5 fights in a calendar year, which is impressive. But him bringing that up, to me, is almost proving Dricus Du Plessis' point. Up until that fight, Vettori had landed 46 significant strikes on him throughout the course of their 3 rounds. Tavares landed 40. Brunson landed, and that Tavares fight was over the course of 5 rounds. Brunson landed 4 strikes, right? He finished him quickly. It was in the first round. I think maybe there might have been a little over a minute left in that round. Anderson Silva landed 31 significant strikes on him through the course of those 3 rounds. Kelvin Gastelum landed 91. Okay? He got rocked by a fat guy who's 5 inches shorter than him with a fucking head kick. That was his toughest fight by far. And he just had 4 fights in 10 months before that. Do you not think that might have something to do? We've seen guys roll Kelvin Gastelum after the fact that are not as good as Israel Adesanya. We saw Jack Hermanson finish him off in, I don't even remember, maybe a minute? I can't remember. Darren Till beat him with taking almost 0 damage. Robert Whittaker beat the ever-living fuck out of him while taking almost 0 damage. We've seen a bunch of guys put on phenomenal performances against Kelvin Gastelum, and we've seen him basically, in my opinion, should have lost a split decision to Chris Curtis, who is nothing special in my opinion, with all due respect. That proves his point. It would appear to me you were burnt out, especially considering after you go out there and you finish Robert Whittaker, and then you have a bunch of successful title defenses after the fact. The one time, though, where you fight 8 weeks after you just fought and fighting 4 times in a 10-month span, you almost lose. He would have just had to have lost 1 more round in that fight. Do you know what I mean? And some of those rounds were very close. He got rocked by Kelvin Gastelum with a fucking head kick. Do you guys think that Burnout had nothing to do with that? Okay? Now, Dricus Du Plessis, on the other hand, has had a pretty close strength of schedule. In the last 12 months, he's fought Tavares, Till, Brunson, and now Robert Whittaker. And it would have been just another 8 weeks after that he would have fought Israel Adesanya. In my opinion, dude's fucking smart for not taking this fight, potentially risking not just the fact that he has an injury, but being burnt out, because those last few that I spoke about, he took in very quick succession. And not to mention, in that time, he's absorbed quite a few more significant strikes than Israel Adesanya, as a few of his fights before the Robert Whittaker one were a little sloppy. Okay, it is what it is. They were a little sloppy. Some of them were even a little tough. So, regardless, I do want to point something out, though, because this is an Aljamain Sterling fight week, as I said in the opening. And you hear a lot of these guys still to this day. If you read the comment sections, if you watch MMA content on YouTube, even John Anik said it in an interview with Mike Bohm from MMA Junkie just the other day, that Aljamain Sterling was essentially bullied into this fight with Sean O'Malley. And it is a quick turnaround. He was bullied into making a quick turnaround. He had almost an extra 2 full months than what Dricus Du Plessis would have had. He has an extra 7 weeks on top of the 8 weeks that they were asking Dricus Du Plessis to go fight the most dominant champion in the middleweight division in like the last fucking decade. You know what I mean? It's insane to me. Insane. Not to mention, Khamzat Chimaev, you can beat Paulo Costa, and there will be people that are clamoring for a title shot, but people who respect the sport, respect the purity of the sport, respect the prestigiousness, I'll use a quote from Eugene Behrman, of the title, should not be and will not be clamoring for it, because Paulo Costa, since losing to Israel Adesanya in 2020, over the last 3 years has fought twice, one of which he showed up at 205 pounds for a scheduled middleweight bout. So for those of you who are unaware, that's about 19 pounds over the middleweight limit. Marvin Vettori said, fuck it, fine, I'll stop cutting weight. Fought him, beat him, and then he fought an old and returning and unranked Luke Rockhold and had a war with him, which is crazy because I don't think that Luke Rockhold would have a war with many guys that are up at the top of the rankings in the middleweight division. I think he would get fucking flatlined by a lot of them. You know what I mean? Not an impressive performance is what I'm trying to say. And they're acting like a victory over Paulo Costa would absolutely propel Khamzat Chimaev into a title shot. This is just fucked. The same people that are upset that the UFC, they literally say it's rigged against Aljamain Sterling. MMA Joey, the fucking ogre, we know, okay, did a video about how they were rigging it against Aljamain Sterling. This is disgusting. That term has been thrown around by more than a few. This is disgusting. They're bullying him. This is rigged in Sean O'Malley's favor. They're trying to give him every chance that they possibly can. Meanwhile, nobody wants to accept the fact, except for people that don't like Israel Adesanya because they find him fucking cringy and does shit like this. Israel Adesanya and his team were absolutely trying to rig a fight in their favor against whoever it was, because no matter who it was, they were going to be taking it on short notice. Why is it that when the UFC pressures Aljamain Sterling to fight in 15 weeks because they need a fucking headliner for that card specifically, it's rigged, it's disgusting, it's bullying, it's all of this shit. But when Israel Adesanya, who has no real contender, refuses an Alex Pereira rematch, and his coach did also, refuses a Khamzat Chimaev title shot, who his coach got absolutely choked at the interviewers for even asking that question because they're disrespecting the prestigiousness of the sport and the title itself, has no clear-cut contender, but picks a date and won't budge on it because it's in Australia when he's from fucking New Zealand. Do you know what I mean? I get it's on his side of the world, but it's not. It's just silly, dude. If you think that Aljamain Sterling was bullied or pushed into taking this fight 15 weeks after his last fight, 15 weeks, okay, that's not an insanely short amount of time, and you think that that was rigged, that was bullying, that was the UFC trying to make Sean O'Malley have the best opportunity he possibly can to win, which I might not even disagree with you. But if you do think that, you fucking sure as shit have to believe that Israel Adesanya and his team were doing the exact same thing to not just Dricus Du Plessis, but whoever the UFC would have thrown in place of him. You have to. Otherwise, you're just fucking insane. And you're just blinded by God knows what. Because it's essentially the same situation, but it's worse for Dricus' side, because he'd have about half the time to prepare for Israel Adesanya after fighting 4 times in the last 12 months, whereas Aljamain Sterling, and a lot of people like to bring up the fact that he had neck surgery after the first Petr Yan fight. That's fine. He did. However, he also took a year off in between his Pedro Munoz and Corey Sandhagen fight. There was a year off in between his Sandhagen fight and his first Petr Yan fight. There was another year off between the first and second Petr Yan fight. And then since then, it's been every 6 months. So now the UFC wants him to do a favor, which they ask of a lot of champions, by the way, not just fucking Aljamain Sterling. And it's rigged, it's a problem. They're bullying him. But when Israel Adesanya says, I have no clear-cut contender, but guess what? I'm fighting on this date. So y'all better figure your shit out, get a fight in between then, and then quickly turn around in 2 months and fight me. Fuck out of here. When you did that, you had the toughest fight of your life, and almost lost the interim title to a 5'9" fat guy who shouldn't be at middleweight. Okay? So anyways, it was real easy to piss off a bunch of weightlifters and bodybuilders yesterday, so I figured we would do the same with some Aljamain Sterling and Israel Adesanya fans. Like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Have a good one. I will be putting out tons of UFC 292 content this week, so stay tuned. Bye-bye.